If there were a firmament that was getting lower to the ground as you went south beyond the Antarctic shoreline, planes would have to fly lower. That is something that would just make sense on the biblical Earth model. And when you look into what actually happens in Antarctica, you find out that, wait a minute, planes do actually fly lower. How much lower? Well, a lot lower. When you look at their elevation, it's around 11,000 feet in the Antarctic region. When you go to the Arctic, it should be exactly the same because they say we live on a globe and the south and the north are exactly the same. However, they're flying at 29,000 feet, far higher, because they don't have to worry about a barrier. And it's not some barrier we're making up. There is footage of this barrier. We've shared it before. There are declassified documents that speak of it. The Encyclopedia Britannica talks about a dome-like structure being around 13,000 feet beyond the 80th south parallel. I used to think there could be another explanation for that. However, there might be some truth to those numbers given that they're flying that low in Antarctica. What do you guys think? Let us know. I think this is fascinating.
Electrostatics gave the exact result that gravity was predicted to give in atomic clocks. With time dilation, atomic clocks prove time dilation, which then would prove Einstein's theory of general relativity, right? That silly theory of the bending and warping of space-time was supposedly solidified through this experiment that was conducted using these cesium atomic clocks. First, what is an atomic clock exactly?
Atomic clocks use the resonance frequencies of atoms as their resonator. This happens when atoms absorb or emit microwave electromagnetic radiation during a quantum transition, resulting in an energy change. One of the primary advantages of using atoms as a resonator is their extreme consistency in resonance frequency. For instance, every cesium-133 atom resonates at exactly 9,192,631,770 cycles per second.
So it's just a measurement of the vibration of atoms at different altitudes? Did I hear the word electromagnetic? So I had to do some research and I found electrostatic time dilation. What? Could there be a general relativistic explanation of the electrostatic time dilation? That's right. There might be a general relativistic theory of electromagnetism, which is very similar to that of gravitation. Which brings us the unified theory of gravitation and electromagnetism. Could there be an electrical equivalence principle from which the electrostatic time dilation ensues? The answer to this question is affirmative. Electrostatic experiments performed in an accelerated frame would produce identical results as electrostatic experiments with a single charge particle or particles to the same type performed in a uniform electric field. It is impossible to distinguish the fictitious inertial force from the real electrical force in a local region containing a single particle. For some reason, they mentioned a dome like twice in this entire article. Kind of like the dome on that Superman TV show I was watching when they were trying to find him on the world map. ChatGPT, what do you gather from this?
If electrostatic potential causes the same time dilation as gravitational potential, it suggests a deeper connection between electromagnetism and gravity. That could challenge the mainstream idea that they're separate forces and hint at a unified principle. Do you think this supports the idea that what we call gravity might actually be an electromagnetic phenomenon?
So back to the experiment that supposedly proved general relativity. So the idea was they took atomic clocks up on an airplane and left some on the ground. They circumnavigated once east and once west and tested the two clocks to see the difference in them. The flying eastward clock was a difference of 59 nanoseconds from the one on the ground. The westward clock was 273 nanoseconds difference from the one on the ground. Just to get an idea, for example, 59 nanoseconds is 59 billionths of a second, or 0.000000059 seconds. Of course, modern science throwing insane numbers at us once again. I just thought it was cool that...
Want to know what I think about the Antarctic ice wall? There's a concept in the flat earth theory that says that the continent on the bottom of our spherical planet is actually not a continent at all. It is said that the Antarctic ice wall is actually a shelf, a high rising wall of ice that actually climbs out of the water. In the flat earth theory, this ice shelf is actually a container that matches the circumference of the earth, meaning that all the world's waters are contained within this wall. When you think about it critically, none of us have ever been there. And even if you have, you've never been at a point where you can observe the entirety of the area. And the fact is, we absolutely have ice shelves in the Antarctic. Walls of ice that extend way beyond the height of our ships. All I'm saying is, how would you know the difference?
Lion-ass, Slytherin, sleazy, snake globers.
So I did a debate the other night, last minute, on Modern Day Debate against Mick Toon and Robert. We're talking about the Chicago skyline, and Mick Toon on Walter Bislin's put 0.5. There you go, 0.5 refraction. It was my first time on Zoom, and I was doing it on my phone, so I couldn't see these little tiny numbers on my share screen to call it out. But when you look at standard refraction, it says it's typically considered to be around 0.13. And then it can fluctuate depending on temperature and pressure gradients. 0.13 or 0.14 under standard conditions, but it fluctuates quite considerably. The biggest influence on the value is the vertical temperature gradient, the rate of change in the air temperature with altitude. When we're doing long-range observations, we're looking horizontally towards the horizon across Earth's surface. We know in the atmosphere there is a vertical gradient. Correlates with temperature and pressure. So when these globers try to implement unrealistic amounts of refraction, it's completely dishonest. So they tell us Earth has a radius of 3959. But when we put in 0.5, it changes the radius to 7918. It makes it twice as big. It goes from 4,000 to 8,000. So now, because we see too far and debunk your globe religion, you have to implement imaginary amounts of refraction and make the Earth's radius twice as big. Now let's get to you, Robert. I showed 4 sunset time lapses with solar filters where the sun was changing in angular size. Robert decided to show one and say the sun doesn't change in angular size. But look, he has this window right here, bigger than this window. Why would you do that, Robert? Why aren't these windows the same size? That was my first debate ever, and I had zero notice or time to prepare. And this is the weasel stuff you guys got to do to try to win a debate against a new flat earther and someone who didn't even have time to prepare for it. It's actually quite pathetic. So I'm going to keep crushing your globe. You can keep being dishonest and lying to try to defend it. But it's a wrap for the globe. The globe is unalived. RIP globe. I'd like to ask everyone to join me and take a moment of silence for the globe. Rest in pieces. Oh, and this was just for entertainment purposes only. We know that Robert and McToon are stand-up good guys. They would never lie to defend their fragile globe religion. Much love, y'all.